I'll tell you a funny story. When I was a terror in high school, and I made friends with a guy in the AV department, and he had a key to every lock in the building, and I borrowed it. And I used to lock people in the bathroom, and to my amusement of my friends and I, and you'd hear him, "Let me out, let me out." But I made the mistake of locking a teacher in there once, and I actually got expelled for 3 days over that one. Oh, I pulled more shit when I was in high school. All right, let's do it. So, where do you start raising money? Obviously, friends and family, but with a big caveat. Do you dabble and take money from friends and family? Hello? Hell no. That's an awkward Thanksgiving and Christmas. I would say, actually, ask me how I know, because when 08 and 9 crashed, I had my brothers in deals, and it was awkward for a while. Yeah, it was really awkward. But it wasn't my fault. I mean, good God, countries went bankrupt back then. So, but anyway, so, make a complete list of every single person you know. It used to be called a Rolodex. Now it's called a phone. But make a complete list of everybody you know and reach out to them. Let them know what you're up to, right? You start there. But this is why it's so important to align with somebody that's already done it, and just align with a good team. Ours, or certainly there's dozens in here. So, okay. So where do you find potential investors? Everywhere. I can tell you, I found some of my biggest investors. I used to belong to this cool health club in Denver. It's called the Aurora Athletic Club, and we had lockers with our names on them. It was a real ego thing, had a little brass name on there. And the guy next to me, we did millions of dollars worth of deals together. I met an old lady with a Craigslist ad who loaned me millions of dollars in Denver. But you just got to, listen, I tell you guys, if they hold still long enough, they need to know what it is you're doing, right? You got to get to the question, what do you do? So how do you get that question? You ask them what they do. They typically reciprocate, okay? But anywhere, soccer games, great place. Of course, church, everywhere people meet, you want to be networking and building that database. And utilize a CRM to keep track of these people, critical, so that you follow up with them, so that you send them educational stuff. If you're interested in a particular market, you put in a Google alert, so anytime an article that's favorable about that market pops up, you send it to them. Hey, this is why we love St. Louis, or whatever, right? Networking events, real estate investor association meetings, meetup groups. Do your own, for sure. But networking. Let's talk about networking for a minute. Probably should have had this slide yesterday when we started. But I used to be terrified of networking. I was always just afraid of being embarrassed, afraid of being rejected. Because my question used to be, how can I show them I'm good enough, right? If you've heard me tell my story, it's the truth. In fact, when I discovered that, after about 8 years of Tony Robbins, I literally cried for 30 minutes. I'm like, holy shit, that's it. That's driven everything I've ever done. And that was my limiting belief, that I wasn't good enough. And so, it took me quite a while to get over that, and just looking at those limiting beliefs, that particular limiting belief, recognizing anybody would reject me just didn't know me, or they had their own bullshit going on. It had nothing to do with me. But it took a lot for me to recognize that. And so if you are an introvert, you get more energy from being alone. Extroverts get energy from being around people. Introverts regroup by being alone. Like Tiffy spent the whole day yesterday in bed, just relaxing. I'm like, babe, what are you? She's like, I'm so happy. I'm just here by myself. That's an introvert, okay? So I felt bad for her, but she loved it. Anyway, so this is what I did. Like, I remember I went to the Family Office Club meeting like in 2018, and I actually had pushed through a lot of this, but it was, billionaires and big dollar people, and I actually had, no shit, I had a list of questions in my pocket that I would reference, that I would ask people, so I didn't have to think about it, and I could use that as a resource. And then you just have 5 seconds of courage. Hey, I'm Rod. I don't think we've met. That's it, okay? But here's the key. First of all, read How to Win Friends and Influence People. Fantastic book. And the main premise of that book is to have an incredible curiosity in whoever it is that you're talking to. And then you guide the conversation with questions, and they think it's the best conversation they've ever had in their lives because they're doing all the talking. But you're able to guide it and steer it and direct it, and you really have, a connection. But here's the thing, and remember this for the rest of the day here. focus on deeper relationships. If you leave here with 5 really good, deep relationships, you have kicked butt, okay? I mean, that's like really good, okay? But focus on deeper relationships, and always, always, always follow up next week. Hey, let's set up a Zoom call. Let's set up a call. Let's continue this dialogue, right? It's super important. Your work is not done when you leave here today. It's starting, okay? But it's not work. You're building friendships, right? That's all you're doing is building friendships. I've got a great pop-up out there about what networking is. It's just building friendships. So, should have sent this to you before you got here. What are your goals for this networking event? In fact, Brooke, you in here? Let's remember to send this networking stuff to them in advance of the Warrior events from now on. Thank you. So how many connections? Set your goals, set your outline for what you anticipate doing when you get to an event like this. And, what are you going to offer people? Sometimes you can offer them something. I remember I used to do these events, and I take really good notes. I'm an incredibly fast typist, and I organize them well. I use a mind map software, and they're really organized well. And I'd say, hey, by the way, I take really good notes. I'd be happy to send them to you after I'm done. People love that. But just think about how you can add value to the people you meet, and it can be any number of things. And I will tell you, there are things called super networkers. A super networker, you've probably met 1 or 2 in your life. When they meet someone, they are looking to how to add value to them, and they're thinking in there, or they're capturing what that person needs. And then they meet somebody that they think can satisfy that. They make it a proactive effort to put those people together. They're incredible networkers. I call them super networkers because they're looking at everybody to see how they can add value, and they're actually joining people together. And they're hugely successful. But, you think about how many connections do you want to make? How many business cards do you want to collect? What are your goals? And define them. Is it to find money? Is it to find deals? Is it to find a team? Have you practiced your elevator pitch? Like I just gave you an example of one. Practice it with your spouse, your dog, your kids, so that you're not fumbling when someone asks you what you're doing. You're very congruent. I'm excited about this current economic environment. I think there's going to be some great deals, and I'm in multifamily, and we're going to buy some and take advantage of this, right? And buy low, sell high. So, by the way, if you ever know anybody that wants to partner on a deal, let me know. It's that simple, okay? All right. And how can you add value? Have you researched? If you go into a meeting, maybe not, this would be a good one. You could have researched the successful warriors and targeted them when you got here, right? That would have been a good thing to do. But whenever you're going to one of these meetings, research it. See who's going to be there. See who you really should try to meet with. And don't be afraid to go up to them. I don't care how freaking famous they are. Seriously. Don't have any fear about that. Maybe you've got an icebreaker. For me, it's just, hey, I'm Rod. I don't think we've met. It's really that simple. Is there a dress code? Yeah, I ignore that one, obviously. Yeah, I want to tell you something really funny. This is absolutely the truth. I went to the NMHC back in 2018 or 19 with my partner Robert, National Multifamily Housing Conference. I think there were 5,000 people. There were at least 3,000 people there. When I tell you that I'm the only one that didn't have a jacket on, I am not kidding. I didn't have flip-flops, though. I had my shoes, but I was in a T-shirt, and that's a true story. But anyway, sounds like I'm bragging, but it's the truth. All right. Yes, here's another one, and this is a tough one for me because I move so quick, and I'm always, you see I interrupt. It's the only hate I ever get on my podcast is, will you just shut up and let them talk? But anyway, it's hard for me to focus. I in some therapy, and the therapist said I have high-functioning ADHD. I literally just heard that. I was kind of surprised to hear that. Anyway, because I'm always working on me. I want to be the best version of myself, and I hope you guys feel the same way about yourselves. We're work in progress, right? It's not like I have some big issue to deal with. I just want to continue to get better. And so, but anyway, he said I had high-functioning ADHD. So when I'm talking to somebody, and I have to force myself to look at that person and not look at the next conversation or try to think about what I want to say or all that stuff. So when you're totally focused on, and by the way, those of you that are introverted are much better at this than us extroverts, much better. It's much easier for you to establish a deeper relationship. So if that's you, you've got that skill set. So, you're ahead of us in that regard. See, don't be looking at your phone. Be really listening. And again, this is something I really struggle with. This is something I want to work on. And, and don't be pushy, don't be salesy. Have a genuine interest in who they are. Get to know them. Find out who they are. Capture, that information. If they tell you who their kids are, their spouses, you throw that in your CRM, and then when you call them again, say, how's Mary? How's everything, how's everything going with this thing you told me about? Man, talk about instant rapport. It's fantastic. So, I know a lot of this is common sense, but, the key is to build rapport. Women are much better at this than men. Oh, I love that top or those shoes. Men can't say that shit, but, how about those Broncos, But you build rapport. And I'm going to tell you something kind of cool, okay? If you ever see two people that are in rapport, okay, first of all, they will do the same movements. If one of them has their hand up like this, the other one will put their hand up like this. The funniest thing, if you really study people like I do, you'll see they start doing the same things. That breathing actually synchronizes. True story. Now, here's the other thing. If you are in rapport with someone, if two people are in rapport, let me say it that way. If two people are in rapport, whoever has the most confidence in the subject matter being discussed, they will always influence the other person. Let me repeat that. If you are in rapport with someone, if you have more confidence in the subject matter being discussed, you will always influence the other person. That's a fact. All right, anyway, so are you only going to talk about real estate? Of course not. You're going to talk about fun things and you're developing friendships. I'd highly recommend that you take notes after you talk to somebody that remind you who they are. Better yet, take a freaking selfie. That's the super networkers I've met. They take a selfie every time they meet somebody and they capture it so they remember who they are. That's an absolute pro tip there. Okay. And then after the event, immediately review your notes. When you guys are on the plane going back or on Monday, Tuesday, review your notes of who you met with, okay, so you don't miss anything, okay? Thank everybody you met with. Man, it was great to meet you. I can't wait to see where things may go with you, kind of a thing, and certainly thank anyone that did something for you. So promptly follow up with everybody you met, on Monday or Tuesday, guys. Super important. This stuff I'm going through right now, if you didn't get anything else from this event, this is the most important part of this. You guys, I've said this time and time again. I set these up at great expense to me, whatever you may think, trust me, because this is so important to your success, okay? And then if there's some way you can add value, that's even better. If there's something when you get home that you talk to them and there's something that triggered in a particular geographic market or whatever, and you can add them some value, there's something you're good at or you do it. There's something called the law of reciprocity. My love language is gifts, but do you think it's helpful for me to hand out my free book at my boot camps and a copy of Think and Grow Rich? You think I just came up with that because I love to give gifts? No, it triggers reciprocity, right? And that's basic sales, guys, and that just happens to be my love language. This is why you as warriors will typically get gifts from me as well after you join. But the point is, the same thing applies here after you're networking, right? So use that. By the way, if you want to read a great book, in fact, two great books. Read Dr. Robert Cialdini's Influence and Persuasion. Fantastic books about influencing and pre-framing a conversation to get where you want it to go. I had the pleasure of speaking on a platform with him and meeting him. Super intelligent guy. Okay. And then connect on all social. Make sure you connect with them. If they're on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, connect with them there. Okay? Super important. Okay. So once you've got investors or you've got people that have expressed a soft interest in working with you, you got to keep them warm, right? So how do you do that? Phone calls, of course. Send them emails. I told you, do a Google alert for that market area or for anything positive about multifamily. Hey, thought you might like this. And just, like we email our investor list, really our entire database. I'm sure you guys get emails from me weekly, with educational stuff, articles that we've written and things that I think can add value. You want to do the same thing, right? And, you could have group meetings. You could do a webinar. You can do a PowerPoint presentation. When the acquisitions team for we met on Friday, we're like, hey, you know what? We're going to get some of those Yeti cups, and we're going to send them to the investors. At least that's what I came up with until I realized it's going to be about $5,000. But I'm like, we'll probably do it anyway because we have 250 investors. I don't know what they cost, but I did a quick math. I'm like, shit, I thought it was going to be 1,000. It's 5,000. Anyway, I digress. But give them gifts. You can give gifts, right? You can give, again, any way to add value and stay in front of them is critical. You guys get the message. Okay, I said this before. This is the greatest freaking time on earth to create reach. By the way, you guys have access to my Crushing It in Social Media course as well. Brooke, is that in the resources for them? Yes, thumbs up. Okay, and that's a kick-ass course. I mean, we've done really well in some of the social channels. I'm not going to say we've killed them all, but we've done really well. So there's a free resource for you. It's called Crushing It in Social Media. It's another course that I did to add more value to you guys, like the Courage and Confidence course I did. But this is the best time on earth to create reach with social media. My God, I mean, and you don't need millions of downloads like I've had or 50,000 people in our Facebook group. Man, you get a few hundred people that you're adding value to that like you. Man, when it's time to raise money, it is much easier than you might think, okay? But so there's two things. I might have a slide on this, but just in case I don't. There's two things you got to remember when you're creating reach. And this is in the course, and you should all probably watch that course. But is you got to be consistent and you got to add value. That's it. If you are consistent and you add value, pick a channel that you like. And I will tell you, Eric's one of the coaches, and he has all his students go on. You've seen him on the Facebook group and do their little videos, right? And that's really not as much for you to watch as it is for them to get comfortable with doing that because it's so incredibly powerful. And if you're uncomfortable doing videos, you may want to push yourself and do the same thing and start doing them. I go back and I look at some of the videos I did like 7 or 8 years ago, and I'm like, oh, good God. It was so bad. I was so nervous and looking around. I was just terrible. But repetition is the mother of skill. You do it over and over again, you become good at it. And man, and video really is the name of the game. I'm just going to tell you, in all these social channels, video is the best. Some of you may think, well, I'll write blog articles. Well, you're only going to get a small percentage of the people that like to read stuff. A lot of people like to consume stuff in video. And I will tell you, you want to really kick butt, you do it on all mediums. And like in our podcast, we have the audio version on iTunes. We have the stuff we throw them on YouTube. I now do them in person. I pretty much, just about anybody I interview on the show has to come to Sarasota to my, unless it's the Warriors. I don't make the Warriors come, but I'm on the larger players that I bring on. Typically, I'll make them come to Sarasota, and we'll sit there. I've got a studio now, and we do it there because it gets much better results online when they can see it's live. I didn't make Hal Elrod come down; he couldn't. Where I was going with that is, if you create something, cross-pollinate it everywhere. Okay? There's software called like Hootsuite. Is Hootsuite one of them? You're not listening. How do you cross-pollinate stuff to different social channels? HubSpot, but Hootsuite does it too, right? Right, HubSpot does it, but there are softwares where you can like take that video and throw it on every one of these. Why wouldn't you? You took the time to create it. Why wouldn't you freaking put it on all social channels, right? But pick one you think you might like and really drill down on that one. Okay, I won't belabor this because you got a whole course on this, okay? There you go, two most important pieces that I did have a slide. Be consistent and add value. Now, if you think you can throw some ChatGPT crap out there, if you put crap out, what are you? Crap, okay. I heard that from somebody else, but it resonated. So put some good stuff out there. If you're going to use ChatGPT, great, but rewrite it, okay? Embellish it, dumb it down, do whatever you can to make it so it's not obviously ChatGPT. Sometimes he'll send me an email. I'm like, did you do this on Chat? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I got to redo it. Let me give him a shout out. He kicks ass. He's the reason we're doing so well on social. But, just beware that if you're going to use ChatGPT or AI, it's not sophisticated enough to be obviously not that, okay? So just keep that in mind. Okay, but again, how do you build credibility? You add value and you educate. It's called education-based marketing, which is all I do, okay, is education-based marketing. And I add as much value as I possibly can. And it comes back to me tenfold every time I do. I write a book, I give it away for free. My best-selling book. I've never, it's on Amazon, but I don't know if anybody's ever even bought it there. I give it away if you pay the shipping, $6 or something. And then I gave away 20,000 PDF copies before it was even printed. And that's how I built my email list, and think about how you can add value. When I first started my podcast, I used to do free 30-minute phone calls. Hey, set up a call. Here's my calendar. Talk about anything. I have nothing to sell you. I just want to add value. And that's, again, that was another precursor to my success there. But anyway, the more you can look like an expert, the better. You know, I talk about acting as if. You're basically acting like an expert. If you host a meetup group, you're perceived as an expert because you're the one hosting, and you just bring me in to talk. You bring other syndicators in to talk. If you start a podcast, you know, Jennifer's got a podcast. We've got probably 36 podcasts in the warrior community, okay, that people have started. And you know, when pre-social media, these hitters that I have on my show that have 5,000 to 10,000 doors, they all did it with meetup groups. You know, they'd have a meetup group, and they'd have 50 people there, and they raised tens of millions of dollars that way from a handful of people they're adding value to, that told other people, and so on and so forth. So, you know, but they didn't have social media. Social media is such an incredible gift. But again, you can host a podcast and be perceived as an expert. You know, you fake it till you make it, right? Because you're the one asking the questions. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. All right. Ideally, you want a lead magnet, it's called. A lead magnet is like these free books that I write, that I give away. I have a stack this high of them, you know, and in fact, I just remember, I have 2 that I forgot about. I just discovered them, and I sent them to you like in the last week. I'm like, put a cover on these damn things so we can get them out there, that I forgot that they'd been written, and I didn't even write those 2, and I had somebody else write them. And we can put them out there. I've got one, passive investing for medical professionals, to hit a specific vertical for passive investing. You could do one for athletes. You could do one for IT professionals, whatever. And it's a specific niche that you know, we anticipate targeting. But that's one of them. I forgot what the other one is now. But anyway, those are lead magnets. You give it away for free. Now, you know, you've seen how they used to do it. You'd get this little white paper to try to get your email address. Listen, if you throw some piece of crap out there, you're not going to give someone to give up their information. It's got to have value, and it shouldn't just be perceived value. It should actually have value. So keep that in mind when you're creating something. Make sure it's valuable and it has perceived value as well. Otherwise, you'll never get their information. But the whole idea is to get their email address and maybe even their phone number, and then start building that list and sending them information. Of course, this applies mostly to investors for people in this room. You can have panel discussions. You can interview experts. You can curate articles. Like I said, we talked about that. You can write your own articles. If you go to the Cash Flow Club, what is that domain again, Matt? CRE Cash Flow Club. You'll see I've got dozens of articles that I've written or had written there. I've got books that I've written or had written there. I've got emails that we've sent. It's just a whole library of this stuff, and it's just adding value. That's it. Luckily, we had a ton of it. I had to recreate it all, so it was perfect. It's like, hell, throw that stuff in there. It's really got a high perceived value. Okay. All right. So any educational content you can provide. You know, at some point, doesn't hurt to understand search engine optimization, you know, and figure out what Google AdWords you want to put in your content when you're writing content. But again, I'm not going to belabor this. This is in the course that you guys have available to you. You can have ChatGPT put keywords in your content. Absolutely, you could do that. But again, I would rewrite it, make it more in your voice. We all have a voice, okay? And it's you know, mine's pretty raw. Probably junior high school. I like to think it's high school at least, but anyway, but you know, we all have a voice that we communicate in, if that makes any sense to you, and you want it to be your voice, okay, as much as possible. But you want to put keywords in your content so that it ranks on the search engines. Does that make sense? Yes? Yeah, you better believe it. Okay, investor meetup groups, man. I would attend as many as you can. At some point, you'll be able to speak at them, right? Create your own. Man, I can't tell you how many meetup groups have been formed in this warrior community. Literally, probably 60. Maybe, I would say at least 50. Let me say that, across the country, even internationally. And again, you create your own meetup group. You find a restaurant where you can meet. If you start with 3 or 4 people, I think somebody on stage said they started a meetup, if I recall, if this was the event. Sometimes they run together for me. Did somebody say that on stage while we were here? Yeah. They started a meetup. Yeah. And it started with 5, but man, I'm telling you, you guys see the postings on the Warrior Group where they meet with a bunch of people in Miami and Jersey and so on and so forth. And again, if you're the one setting it up, you're perceived as the expert because you're the host, right? Fake it till you make it. And by the way, if you're interested in doing this, we were going to brand like lifetime cash flow meetup groups, and I was like, you know what, this is too much brain damage. I'm not going to do it. But we did all the homework on how to set up a meetup. So if you want to do one, DM Brooke, and she'll say, Rod, you dummy, you promised this. Now you got to find it. But we have it, and we'll find it. We'll send it to you. And you know what? When I send it, Brooke, let's put it in the course materials, put it in the document library, how to set up a meetup. Okay. All right. Again, guys, anything you do in life, you should always be working to constantly make it better. Tony Robbins calls it CANI, constant and never-ending improvement. Got that from Charles Deming, who went to Japan and created their production and manufacturing systems and greatly enhanced them, called it Kaizen, I believe, K-A-I-Z-A-N. But you want to always make things better, and that's what we focus on in my companies. Use a CRM. We talked about this. HubSpot. Brooke, remind me on this slide to add Perry on here, because I'm certain that his CRM is fantastic. So let's add his to this cash flow portal. Okay. Maybe as you're approaching investors, is there a niche that you could go after that you're comfortable with? Certainly, if you're in the IT space, it would be IT professionals. Whatever. Is there a group of people you're more comfortable with communicating with? Certainly, if you're medical, it'd be medical, whatever. Maybe not, but maybe you owned a business. You could go after business owners, athletes, whatever business you're in could be one. Maybe it's a particular age group. I don't know, whatever it is. But the more you can niche down who you want to go after for investors, the better, because you can target them with your marketing, with your website. Like I said, we just did a passive investing book for medical professionals. It's only about 20, 30 pages, but it's a nice piece, right? And then learn everything you can about them. Some of you may have gotten questionnaires. Actually, when you join us, you get a pretty exhaustive questionnaire of who you are and where you come from. That's so we know who you are. So we've defined who our avatar is for this thought leadership business. We also did it with our investors. We discover their pain points. And listen, if you can find out what someone's pain points are, you can use that in your marketing, right? Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. Am I losing you? Okay. And then once you know what those pain points are, you figure out how to add value and satisfy those pain points in your marketing materials when you're talking to investors. Tired of losing money in the stock. In fact, watch the videos that I did on Cree Capital. We completely redid that website, and the videos the first 3 are all pain points. Is this happening to you? Is this happening to you? And then I solve them in further videos, okay? And there's a whole strategy that I use there where typically I'll mention the next video. Hey, go to the next video to see what we do about this. It's like the whole Netflix thing, how you watch a Netflix and they tease you to go watch the next episode. It's kind of the same thing that I did in that video sequence that I learned from a video expert on the Cree Capital site. So that's a great kind of a primer for you guys to check out. Okay. First investor call outline. Okay, there you go. Certainly you're going to sell the team, but are you going to start with that? No. You're going to get to know them first. What are they looking for? What are their goals? Are they looking for cash flow, or are they looking for a quick hit? Some investors are used to doing IPOs and they get their money in and out fast. That's not our business. We've got a 5 to 7 year horizon, right? So, or maybe they want the money in 3 years to pay for college or something else. That's not going to work, right? So you really need to find out what their goals are. And I'm going to tell you, pay attention to personality. Managing your investors can be harder than managing your property. And if somebody's an ass, move on. Ask me how I know. You don't need that brain damage, okay? And you don't want it. So, pay attention to their personality. If they're a pain and they continually ask questions and it's like, oh, for God's sakes, he's calling or she's calling again, just say, listen, I don't think this is a fit. Trust me, you'll thank me if you do that, okay? But it's important to know when they want their money back. I'll take a couple questions. I probably did that way too fast. Sorry about that if I did. Had some coffee. Nothing? Okay. Yes, go ahead. Mike, can we do a mic? Yeah, right here. Stop running, Brooke. Can I tell him, Brooke? She's going to have a boy. Our favorite girl here, Brooke's going to have a boy. Yeah. All right. We'll start right here. Green mic. Yeah. Stand up.
Well, I have a question about LLC.
If it's about approaching different GPs again, I'm going to...
No, I promise not. I learned my lessons. Well, I have a question about LLC. So you mentioned we have to start...
Oh, God, I'm so glad. Hold your question. I was needed to tell you guys something. Just give me, because otherwise I'm going to forget, and it's really important. Remember I told you guys to set up a branding company LLC? Yes? That company should never really own anything, okay? It is really just your face. You could write contracts in the name of that branding company LLC, but you always will assign them to a property-specific LLC, okay? So that company really shouldn't own assets. Because if you ever get sued, they're going to sue that company if it doesn't own assets, right? Okay, now, also, this is super important. I apologize, Marina, I just forgot to mention this, super important. Okay, your holding company should never do business, it should never do anything other than holding membership interests in these other entities. That's all it does, is hold membership units, which is like the stock, in these other LLCs. It never does business publicly. Super important. It shouldn't go anywhere. The name shouldn't be seen anywhere. All it does is hold your membership units, okay? So those are two things super important. Because if it never does any business and it just holds those membership units, it's pretty damn hard to get to, okay? All right, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Well, I think you answered some of my questions.
Okay,
I just
good.
want to clarify.
Good.
So when we open LLC, we are just creating a branding company, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first one.
Yeah.
But how we can raise money? Because we cannot raise money if we don't have SEC license, right? So we have to raise money for a specific property.
No. Well, first of all, you're not going to actually raise money until you have a property in most cases, unless you set up a fund. Like we are rolling out a fund next week that people can put money into. It'll draw, 4 to 5% interest while the money's in there, and it's an opportunity fund to be ready for opportunities that come up. So we will have money go into that. But typically, it'll be a property-specific raise, okay? But are you going to be talking to people and saying, hey, if I find something, would you be interested in seeing it? Yes. Are you going to take money from them? No, unless you have a fund like I just described. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes. So basically, we set up LLC for branding, CRM purposes, and just soft commitment.
Well, the soft commitment, the LLC, you won't use the LLC for the soft commitment. That is just, actually, that's not true, because you will put your branding company in cash flow portal with your logo and stuff like that, so you've got a nice presentation for investors, and they can go in there and register. You tell them, go in there and register, so we have a deal. We make sure that we send you the information on that. We send you the webinar, stuff like that. But you won't take money until you actually have a deal, unless you set up a fund like I just described.
Right, but can we set up, not like I'm ready to set up the fund, but do you have to have a license or you have to?
No, you do not. You can absolutely talk about deals, and you can raise money as long as you do other things in the deal. Super important that you do other things. That's the key. Now, again, that's going to be deal specific. And even in the fund, we're using the money for deals. Okay? So I don't recommend you start with a fund. I recommend you do deal specific syndications to start. Okay?
Agree. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did I answer? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Was there another one back there? I think I saw. I can't see, guys. Nothing else? No other questions? Okay. Oh, way back here. Merle, thanks. Well, I think Brooke's going to beat you. I told her to stop running. Okay. Stand up.
Hello.
Yellow mic.
Mr. Rod.
Yes, sir.
Been to Denver. Have a great time, but I'll get to the question. Okay, question is, in syndications, how do you know, what kind of red flags do you hit if you've got a sponsor that wants to syndicate, but there's something that strikes your red flag of going south? What kind of things, do you have any tips on that I could use?
Well, no, there's so many different possibilities there. I wouldn't even know how to answer that question. I would say ping me and see if I know anything, and ping me with that specific concern.
Okay.
Ask other warriors if they've worked with that person. And if you have one that you're concerned about, ping me immediately. I want to keep my eyes on anything that's going on and protect you guys. So always let me know, guys. If you see something suspect in our warrior community, please let me know. I take that very, very seriously, okay? But again, there's too many nuances there, brother. I couldn't possibly answer that question. So if you've got a specific, or if it comes up, just ping me, okay? You guys, every one of you has got my cell phone number. Don't call me. Text me if it's urgent. Get on my calendar if it's not urgent, but nobody abuses that. You guys are incredible.
Thanks, appreciate your time.
You bet, bud. Okay, anybody else? Oh, right here. And over here. And over here. Matt? Where are we at? We're good? Thank you.
Hi, Rod. Vince Cerisi. If you're doing a deal for the first time, no experience whatsoever, like my background is legal, but I don't have any experience
Right.
in this area, and your investor comes to you and says, okay, I appreciate you bringing me this deal. What is your experience in this? I know you're going to reference a team, but what is your personal experience in this? Are
You asking me?
No.
No.
They're going to ask
You get
me.
asked that question. This
Yeah.
is why you need a team. Because you can't lie.
Right.
You know, and are they going to be comfortable giving a brand newbie their money? Probably not.
Right.
This is why damn near everybody starts aligning with another team and does their first deal or two, and then you've got experience. This is
So
the
you
why.
would say to them, you know, my
Hey,
team has...
now we,
Right.
use the we word, put your arms out figuratively, we, right? And we have X number of doors. We've done deals here, here, and here.
Got it.
And yeah,
Great.
it's that
Thank you.
simple. Yeah, my pleasure, brother. Where are we at? Wasn't there one over here? Green? Oh, red mic.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Rod, a quick question. For the opportunity fund you're talking about, is that similar to fund of funds?
Yes.
Where?
Yeah,
Okay.
kind of is. Yeah, let's not get too technical on that because everybody's in here's eyes will cross. But yeah, you can have a fund. It's similar, but it's not. But let's talk about that offline because I don't think it's going to
Okay.
serve the group, brother. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
ping me. Okay, thanks.